Good morning, everyone. I want to begin again by acknowledging the thousands of people who engage in nonviolent, peaceful protest throughout our city on Friday and yesterday, and who didn't allow themselves to be sidetracked by the devastation that we've seen. And it is devastating, absolutely devastating. Seeing the images and reading the reports of reckless destruction that played out across our city and really across our country is heartbreaking. Now, make no mistake, there is a lot of righteous anger and grief boiling here and across the country, and that isn't just about George Floyd, although that was the catalyst for this expression. It's also about Laquan McDonald and Quintonia LaGreer and others before and since. It's about so many members of our community who have lost unjustly over the generations. And it's about a system that demands change, and we must recommit ourselves in this moment to fundamentally changing the things that have plagued us for way too long, including our original sin of racism. So I stand shoulder to shoulder with those who have come out peacefully to express our righteous indignation, as we should and as is our right. And that's why I'm also hurt and angry at those who decided to try to hijack this moment and use it as an opportunity to wreak havoc, to loot, and to destroy. You should be ashamed of yourselves. What you have done is to dishonor yourself, your family, and our city, and its long and proud legacy as a leader of bold and vibrant, peaceful protest. And I urge you, and you know who you are, to think long and hard about what you can and should do to devote the passion and the energy that you showed last night in wreaking havoc in our city to doing something different with your life and your talents. To think about tomorrow for you, for your families, for your loved ones, and for your city. I know you can do better than what I saw last night, and I pray to God that you will find it in your heart to embrace something better for yourself in your lives. Those who decided to smash the doors of apartment buildings and people's homes and instill a level of insecurity, I just have to wonder, where were their parents? And what are we teaching them? We don't need to hand anyone a gift to point to us and say that's what they do. As I said yesterday, when you or anyone behaves in this way, we all lose. By giving the very same forces of racist oppression, we are fighting the false validation that they crave. This chaos and destruction is not the right tactic to bring change. How do we transform the systems of institutional racism that have stolen the lives of our loved ones over generations? Certainly not by setting businesses on fire and smashing windows. Not by setting people's cars on fire. Not by swinging hammers and shovels and throwing urine at the police. We saw 4 shootings in the Loop last night. From 7 to 11 p.m., 6 people were shot, 1 person killed. Is that how we bring social justice? How we seek change? No, it certainly is not. Any true and lasting change towards justice, towards the betterment of our country that has ever happened came from the hard work of organizing in our communities with love, not hate. The hard work of peaceful, nonviolent protests, as espoused by no less than Mahatma Gandhi and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. They spent their life and their blood striving to better all of us through peace and transparency, fervently, passionately, to be sure, but always with an eye towards peace. During this COVID crisis, we have seen people organizing in their communities, forming mutual aid groups, providing help and support to the unemployed, our elders, and so many more in need. Thousands, literally thousands of community volunteers, bringing strong communities in our hour of great need. That's the work that we must lift up and celebrate. That is how we change life for the better in our city, and that's the work that we must support and must continue. Through engaging our democracy, through voting and legislative process, through the legal system, and above all, through the hard work to build and grow and inspire our consciousness for change. Seeing the murder of George Floyd sickened me, and it still does. But rather than respond to his death as we should, and focus our energy towards doing the hard work to create the change that we need, we have instead been forced to turn our focus and energy towards preventing wanton violence and destruction. Violence and destruction that is disgusting and obscene, and that threatens public safety, public places, and people's basic freedoms. More than that, violence and destruction that tarnishes the legacy and the moral credibility of pain and justice that peaceful protesters sought to express. And folks, that not only breaks my heart, and it does, it leaves me angry and frustrated. And I know I'm not alone in sharing these feelings. We need to protect people's rights to life, liberty, property, and employment. It is for these reasons that today, the city of Chicago is taking new precautionary measures to further ensure the health and safety of our residents. In addition to our 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew that will remain in place until further notice, Governor Pritzker, at my request, has ordered a contingent of the National Guard to maintain a limited presence in support of our police department in order to ensure that we don't have a repeat of what we saw last night. This wasn't an easy decision. I did it at the request of and in consultation with Superintendent Brown, but it's surely the right decision in this moment. We are also reducing access to our Loop and Central Business District, and Director Guidance will provide more details. This area will only be accessible to residents and essential employees whose businesses are located within the boundaries we have set, to enable the cleanup and repair and restoration of their places of livelihood, the safety of their residences, and to remove hazards which were intentionally created last night, as the mountains of broken glass can attest. We have also suspended all CTA train and bus service coming in and out of the Loop. In light of these restrictions, our outreach teams are attempting to work closely with the organizers of rallies and protests scheduled to form alternative places for such marches to peacefully take place. I want to take this moment to give a special thanks to our many brave men and women of the Chicago Police Department. I watched for hours yesterday as you showed incredible restraint, despite a lot of provocation that were intended to have you disregard your training. You did tremendous work yesterday, and we are proud of you. I also want to thank the men and women of our fire department who were also on hand day and night. And Commissioner Ford, as I said yesterday, you should be proud of their efforts as well as the other members of our public safety agencies, both city and state. I want to give a special note of thanks to State's Attorney Kim Fox and her prosecutors who have been working hand in glove with us. I want to also thanks again the Illinois State Police who were heroic in support of our police department yesterday. Men and women of the police department, I know you are exhausted, and we are doing what we can to ensure that you get the rest you need. I also want to give my personal thanks to the individuals and true public servants and leaders who are standing here with us at this time. Of course, Superintendent Brown, OAMC Executive Director Rich Gaitis, Police Board President Guion Foreman, Alderman Brendan Riley, Alderman Chris Taliaferro, as well as my Black, My Hood, My City leader, the fearless Jamal Cole, and Pastor Otis Moss of Trinity United Church of Christ. It goes without saying that all of this occurring while we were still in a pandemic poses even greater risk. So to those of you who do go out peacefully, again, please, for your own safety and the safety of our communities, please wear face coverings and maintain safe social distancing while you are marching. And we all need to remember, our children are watching. My child, your child. We need to be the example that we want them to follow. COVID-19 is still very much alive in our city, and the highest risk of spread is in big crowds. Our Public Health Commissioner, Dr. Allison Arwady, was emphatic in wanting to communicate to people who have been in crowds or will be in crowds that given their exposure, the safest thing for them to do is to quarantine for 2 weeks. But they must at least avoid close contact with anyone over 60, anyone with an underlying condition for 14 days to avoid infecting people with the highest risk for COVID outcomes. I don't need to remind us again, but I will say this, that this disease is still ravaging our Black and brown communities. And our public health officials are gravely concerned that yesterday's action could turn out to be a super spreader event. Now, I'll invite Superintendent Brown to speak in a moment, but let me finish by saying this. The decisions that I've had to make in the last 24 hours are not decisions I'd wish on any leader. None of them were easy. They were all hard. And I know that these are decisions that mayors all across the country have been making because I've been in contact with many of my peers for the last few days. And I know many people are feeling scared and unsettled. But I make no apologies that I'm always going to make the tough but necessary choice if it means protecting our people. Chicago is strong. This is our home. This is a city that we built with our blood, sweat, and tears. This is a city that we must protect so it can provide for us. We know it's not perfect, but if it gets destroyed, we are all left to pick up the pieces. In this city, we care for each other. We've seen that over and over again. This is a time for us to unite. We have to turn our pain into purpose in order to get through this moment together and do the work needed to unite our city and move us forward in a way that is more equitable, inclusive, and just. And I hope that you will join me today, all over Chicago, at 5 p.m. for a moment of silence, for a moment to reflect on what we have lost, but also to reflect on what we have gained. I know in my heart, in my soul, that we will be able to learn from this moment and move forward together. That is who we are as a city. That is the values that we share. And we must never forget our sense of who we are as Chicagoans and as a city, our sense of community. This is what will carry us through. Now I invite Superintendent Brown to speak.